Energy. It is all around us, both seen and unseen. It affects all the lives within humanity, our great planet Earth, and the entire universe. It is a conscious cosmic matrix, an ever-evolving cycle, creating, breaking down, and recreating. This is Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Andrea tells us that energy is the foundation of our human experience, intrinsically affecting every facet of our lives, our perceptions, choices, and actions, as well as the challenges, opportunities, and people we attract. So now, please welcome the host of Connected, Andrea Dragonfly.
Hi, welcome to the show Connected. I'm your host, Andrea Dragonfly. We are in the beginning of our new year, 2025. And so we've been talking about this shift and change, endings and beginnings, what we can kind of sort of expect coming down this year's, kind of like the premonitions of this year and what we can energetically expect with the astrology even, right? And so I had left a few different links to the astrology of the new year on my media page at andreadragonfly.com. So that's my website. And if you haven't checked that out yet, I do encourage you to check it out because it's going to be one heck of a year. And last week we talked a little bit about just moving through attachment, detachment, and non-attachment, and especially with the beginning of this year, the fires in California and the flooding and hurricanes of the fall, actually, at the very end of last year as we're moving into the new year, and then what's going to be coming, so within even the springtime, March and April, there is potentials for lots more flooding throughout the United States. And so being that US is my home, I am connected there. But if you're watching this from any other part of the country, also noticing what's happening in your local areas or areas to be concerned about, right? Because it is going to be a big year for lots of shifts and changes. Now, like anything, when we come into a new year, it really marks a new beginning, a new calendar cycle, right? You get rid of the old 2024 calendar, you buy the new 2025 calendar. Oftentimes what we do is we, can set intentions or maybe even resolutions, right? And I think it's usually the second Friday or like within the 14th day of the new year that many of those resolutions begin to falter because it's tough. It's tough to stay on track when we really want to create some shifts and changes in our lives, right? And we want to grow ourselves. Now, there's no coincidences that this happens during this time, because if we look at the calendar of the year and we look at winter solstice, we are right at the end of the 6 weeks of winter solstice. So we're actually at the 5th week. Next week will be the very last bit of winter solstice period. And if we talk about death during Halloween, Day of the Dead, and the death ceremonies, and we have 6 weeks, then we come to winter solstice, we're at that place of reflection. And I've talked about this in a few different shows now, because when we die, we dematerialize all of the materialization of our energy bodies, right? Physical bodies goes into the earth and it decomposes and turns back into energy. And at that same time, if we look at cycles of life and death, if we were to go through a fractal of a whole lifetime and we die, that's when our energy goes up and we go through the period of, this whole process before we become reborn again back in the reincarnation cycles. And we're going to talk more about those reincarnation cycles, but not today, because we're going to be looking at just the process of moving through the cycle. So when I say that we're going to talk more about those reincarnation cycles, I've had several people say, you know what, I'm choosing not to come back in next lifetime. This is too tough in this lifetime. And so that conversation we're going to have in another show. It's not going to be this show because we are talking about the changing of the guard. We're talking about allies and how we can have these energies supporting us as we actually make these conscious choices for change within our own lives, our own leveling up, our own evolution, right? So that will be another show. However, in this one, why I bring it up is because, again, it's that cycle of life, death, and then rebirth again. And so we're in that reflection phase of being dematerialized back into just pure energy. That's the energetic. That's if we think about it, the winter solstice represents moving out of the material and into the wave energy. So leaving the particles behind, moving into the waves. And that's that reflection of saying, what did I learn for 2024? So we're reflecting on that. And so this is the time that says, oh, well, I want to do this. I want to be more present. I want to, whatever. Everybody's going to have their own unique, what it is that they want for themselves, right? And so that's very normal. That's very natural because it's part of that reflection. And we're coming to we're nearing the end of that time of reflection. So, so this is where we begin to set those intentions even more so. Because at the very beginning of February 2nd, 2nd, is what we would call Candlemas or Imbolc. So it depends on different traditions. But it's the time which is known as the quickening seed. And I am going to talk more about that next week. But I'm bringing it forward just to give the, kind of a feel, the set up tonight's conversation, because it's all part of it. It's all connected, right? So next week, we're going to be looking at those intentions because the quickening seed is where we actually bring the spark of new ideas, of new desires, of new hope. It's really kind of connected to what we would call conception, a new conception, as if an egg and a sperm came together to create a new creative life force, right? A new creation, a new project, a new something that we're going to be growing for this next calendar year. And then we're going to kind of watch that grow, whether we're conscious of it or not, because we're just always evolving. So, but when we become more conscious of it, we can track it. We can really start to get connected to our own process, our own growth. So these shows, of course, are for you because you're watching them. But if we look at all of the other people in our lives that aren't watching these shows and don't care that much about consciousness at this time, we can also recognize that they're still going through this within their own lives. They're just not conscious of what they're doing because it's just part of what it means to be human. Every year, we're constantly slowly and evolving. We can actually evolve faster when we become conscious of what it is that we're doing and how we do it. However, within that, sometimes we can falter, sometimes we get stuck, sometimes to be human means that it's we're going to have our challenges. And we can get stuck, and we can get stuck for a long period of time, or we could just say, you know what, tonight, this year isn't the year. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get rid of that bad habit or that poor, I was going to say poor choice, but within that, it's more like a bad habit. It's just more along the lines of, choosing something different that's going to benefit us, benefit you in particular. And so I have this practice, which is called I'm sorry, let me reframe. It's called the changing of the guard. And the changing of the guard really is, it's being conscious of how we choose to live our new year. And so it's really about bringing our allies into the new year. And we can start with just a few. We don't want to overwhelm. If you're not used to working with conscious energies, then my invitation is to pick a couple, and we're going to talk a lot about what these energies can look like in the show. And then through the consecutive shows hereafter, I am going to go into deeper conversations with each of them. So this is just kind of going to be more of the intro to the guard. Who's with us? So we're going to be looking at guides, guardians, different I'm just going to get the word out, archetypal energies that we can call in to work with us, walk with us, so that we can consciously grow ourselves exponentially. 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 I always get that. I can't seem to get that out of my mouth. So, excuse me. But thank you. Okay, so we also talked last week about attachment and detachment, and I know I just mentioned that, but I want to kind of come back to that, because when we're attached to something, I'm just going to do a quick little review on this, is that we really have an emotional connection, or sometimes even like a dependency on a person, a thing, an idea. And within that, there's this feeling, that this strong feeling that we need to hold on to that, and that life comes along and it kind of like tests us in these ways. And of course, I brought this up especially around loss and grief, and especially around our material lives. The fires really bring a huge awareness as to what we might be attached to, right? The flooding and homes just completely being swept off their bases and floating down the river can bring us to the depth of loss, and how we can't really be attached. I mean, even just looking at how a whole home could be floating down a river completely unattached from its root, from its foundation, right? So these are things to also bring in, because this is going to be part of our new year as well. So bringing it in at the beginning of the year helps us navigate ourselves, because the invitation was to bring this into your week. Where do you know that you have attachments? And then detachment was on the other side of that. And some people say that you have, like, this is where there might be like a strong, kind of like, or a complete lack of emotion or connection or interest within something, right? But it doesn't also have to mean that either. It doesn't, we want to be open to it. So detachment also means that there could be some sort of stuff going on over there that we're just not emotionally involved in. Sometimes people have drama. And when you're a partner in a relationship, maybe your partner has some drama with family, and that you're just not going to feed into that. You're just going to detach from that. No, support your partner as they're working through that, but you don't have to get involved in that. It's not yours to get involved in, for the most part, right? So you can just detach from that, hold your partner in the process of them coming through that. And then we move into non-attachment, right? And so non-attachment is really letting go of the emotional grip that we might have on something. So, which allows us to be more flexible, and it allows us to really kind of have a new approach to life, where we are, it's kind of more of a liberated approach to life. It's where we recognize that things have come into our lives and we've enjoyed them. And I did talk about people. I talked about homes, or even like, periods of time where we've had like this group of community that we were living with for like 10 years, and then everything shifts and changes and we move into a new environment, new community, or the community, of course, evolves, right? Maybe there's some people from the old community and now new people are coming in. So however it is, we're always that in that shift and change. And then there's that non-attachment, that is the gratitude for what we've had, and the beauty of that experience. However, honoring it and letting it go in love, letting it go in that gratitude that it has shaped you, changed you, brought you to this place of whatever might live within you, peace and beauty, all those things that we can have. And so that's part of our non-attachment. And I really love the segue of moving from attachment, detachment, non-attachment into working with our allies, because they are the ones who can really help deepen our practice to letting go, to understanding our human experience. Because our human experience is going to come with attachments. Our human experience is going to give us the opportunity for non-attachment over and over and over again, whether it's, again, friends, community, partners, homes, material objects, ideas, right? All these different things. And so by calling in this team, this is how we can really consciously create our lives. And I'm going to go back to the difference between fate and destiny. Because fate, like, everybody has a fate. And when we look at fate, fate is where we can look at it as the fate train, where you're riding in the fate train and the train is taking you where the train is taking you. And really, you're just kind of holding on, and whatever comes your way, you're going to deal with it as it comes. And, and we all have that. If we all just let life take control and, and life on us, that's what fate is. Life is lifing on us. However, destiny is where we become the driver of that train. We drive that train where we want it to go. We, of course, are going to make, the shifts, the turns. Maybe we're going to stop over here for a period of time, right? So we begin to create our own lives consciously. So those who are just living life unconsciously. And of course, they're still making some choices. By all means, we all have that, but they're not really taking the bull by the horns and directing it. They're kind of being directed by it, right? And so destiny is where we actually take on our life. And this practice that I'm inviting all of you who watch this is a practice that I've been doing for at least 15 years. Probably even 25 years. If I think about my community, it's just evolved in so many different ways over time, right? And because of the evolution of it, this is where you get to start with where you want to grow yourself. And so with the changing of the guard, what I do is we're going to take a break here shortly. We still got a few minutes before that happens. But we're going to explain this a little bit, and then when we get back, I'm going to actually take you on an early meditation. Normally I do that towards the end of the show. I'm going to take an early meditation. I'm just going to connect you into some fields of energy. And then within those fields of energy, we're going to talk about what we can actually connect with in those energetics, right? Because we can then bring that into our focus. We can bring that into creating relationship. Now, way back, before all of the new year and all of the holiday stuff, I was talking about, who's on your team. This is how we build our team. We become conscious that there's all these different energetics that can actually be part of our team. And when we work with them for like a year, so this is the invitation to working with your team for a year, from this midwinter all the way through the year until next midwinter, where we actually would change the guard. And so the guard is your team. I'm going to talk again a little bit when we get back. I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between guardians and guides, right? Because they have different roles. They play different roles in our lives. So we're going to be looking at how we can actually create these relationships. And then once we walk with them for a full year, we develop so beautifully into a new relationship that we'll always know that. We can't not know that. Or if we didn't really deepen that bond so much, you can keep that on for the following year even, and be like, oh, I didn't really get as much as I wanted from this energy that I called in. I'm going to call it in and walk with it for another year and focus more on it because I got distracted. These things came up and I didn't give as much time to it as I wanted, or I picked too many things. And this was one of the pieces that I didn't have enough time to really focus on in my, in my practice, my presence practice, my meditation practice. So anyway, with that, we're going to go ahead and take that quick break now. And with, we're going to take a couple of minutes. When we get back, we're going to dive more into that. And we'll see you back here in just a couple minutes.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to say that I'm in San Diego and I'm at my dear friend's house and I'm in their art room and it's a pleasure to be in here. So I know there's a lot of stuff happening behind me. I just want to address it. There's a portal right behind me, so don't go into the light just yet. However, there's so many amazing things in this room. First of all, I just love it. It is just the art room of magic. I'm just going to say that. I wish I could have this like 360 spin of this room. But so I'm in San Diego, I'm traveling, and this is what happens. This is where I do the show. Wherever I'm at, as long as I got Wi-Fi, here we are, right? So there's that. Now, moving back into working with our team, creating our team, calling in. So we have what we know as resonant energy. Now, I want to also say, so this is the disclaimer that always needs to be said, is that there are so many different types of conscious energies that I'm going to cover several. But if I don't cover some of them, it doesn't mean, and you know about them and you work with them, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. It just means that there's so many and that we are going to resonate to different energy energy consciousnesses, okay? Because some of them are, they're all like, they could all be energy beings in different forms, right? And so as we move through these different energy fields, I'm also just kind of I'm opening it up in a way that this is just kind of foundational. And if you know it to be another way, great. There's so many ways for us to connect. This is just the way that I've been working for years. And so I know that there are many paths to to the high, to the higher worlds. Let's just say that, to the high consciousness. And wherever you are at and however you work with this doesn't mean that it's right or wrong or good or bad. It just means that we're going to share, add this to your repertoire of how you work with energy, right? Now, this is a meditation that I use. It's the beginning. It's the way that I invite my clients to connect in when I do any type of magical work. And when I say magical, remember that magic is, the true definition of magic is where two conscious energies come together and interact. That's it. That's it. Two conscious energies come together and interact, right? So that's my definition of magic. So when I do any kind of energetic work where I'm going to be connecting with conscious energy, this is how I begin. And this is also when I end too. And then I do all of my work in the middle there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And I invite you to really land yourself in your heart chakra, because the heart chakra, again, this is our, into the greater love, greater light. We are electromagnetic beings. Our heart is pumping all that through. This is our kindness, our love, our generosity, our openness, our acceptance. This is that place of our own, we have, our own connection. And of course, it's in the core. It's the center of us, right? And so just invite us to connect into our heart. And feel your chakra systems. We haven't talked about our chakras in a long time, but our crown is at the very top, and our third eye is our sixth chakra. Our throat is our fifth chakra. Heart is the fourth. Solar plexus is the third. Sacral is the second. Our root chakra. And I'm just going to invite you to feel your energy on top of the earth. Right now, you're just feeling yourself on top of the earth. And there's so many energies there on the top of the earth. And here, even like we begin with our elementals, I always start, I'm going to call in 7 directions. Because in these 7 directions, we can connect into everything in one way or another. So there's many ways. Within this, you can start by, I always start with the physical. And the way that I connect to the physical is through the south. Now, these for me are a mixture of my different cosmologies, of the different wisdom traditions that I learned over time. You get to decide what's right for you, because so many different wisdom traditions do it differently. And this is where you get to decide, well, what feels right, what resonates. And that resonate, to find a resonance is where, when it comes into your field, it's joyful, it's uplifting, it feels so good, it feels yummy. It's like, yes, that feels right. It aligns with you. It's like this energetic alignment that brings you into a higher sense of beauty and joy and all the goodness, right? That's a resonance. And so you want to find what's right for you. So by sharing with you mine may not be right for you. But again, this is just an example. It's kind of like, it's just a guide. I'm guiding in this process. So when we're working with that, we're working like, I'm going to start with the south, but in other traditions, you might start with what season it's in. Right now, we are in the winter time, right? Which would be the north for North America. The winter might live in the north, right? But I'm going to start in the south. I start with the physical. And this is the way that I learned multiple cosmologies and how I put it together. So I work with the south, and I work with the equator, and I work with the light. So the fire of the south, the fire of the equator. Now, if you're in the southern hemisphere, the fire would be to your north because you're below the equator. If you're in the northern hemisphere, the fire is below us, so it would be south of us. And so that fire is warmth, it's heat, it's passion. It's also creation, it's the spark of life, right? So it's like feeling that spark of light. So we call in all of the south, we call in the physical experience of us in these human forms, in the physical form of our body, the physicality of our world. We also call ourselves into action. What's the action that I'm going to take for the new year, right? So this is all that south fiery action energy. It's also known as rapid transformation. We can really move ourselves forward with the fire. Thinking about that, taking a piece of paper and putting into the fire and up in flames, and then it becomes ash, right? Into air. And then it goes from particle into waveform immediately, right? We also have what we can consider archetypes. And archetypes are representations. And we're going to have a whole show on archetypes. And so, because there's so many powerful representations. But within this one, I want to use an animal archetype. And when I work with the cosmology of the South, of the shamans of South America, we work with what's known as the serpent or the snake, because this is the shedding of our skins. This is moving ourselves through the shedding of our skins. And as we evolve, a snake will shed their skin, depending on the snake. I think it's like monthly, maybe every 6 weeks. I forgot that. But it is cyclically. And so we are also going through the cycles. So there's an archetype there. There's an element, the element of fire, and all that comes with fire. And so the archetype is the serpent. And then we can also connect into all of the allies that we can connect to heat and light. So we can think about desert energies, or we can think about heat energies. And if we're thinking about just the earth, we can think about minerals, the crystal realm. We can also look at plants. And we already talked about plants, as allies before the holidays. And so there's certain types of plants that live in the heat. And so we have the dry heat of the desert, but we also have the wet heat of the jungle, right? So you're also kind of looking at how it all takes shape and how it's all different. And then we also have animals of the heat. And these animals of the heat are also going to be different in different environments. So we might have, again, we have the snake, but we also, have the coyote that might be connected to the south. We have the salamander connected to the fire. There is the lizards, the geckos. So we can begin to think about when you're connecting to the heat, you can think of the Sahara, you can think of the big cat prides, the elephants, the rhinos. So the giraffes. So again, and what is resonant? So all of those are fire allies coming from that element. So they're that connected in, they need that environment for them to thrive. So that's part of that. And then we can begin to work with other types of energies of light. Now, there's innumerable beings of light, and so we call them in, but we get to learn them over time. So there's legions of light, legions of conscious light. And they can be, and as we move up, we're going to kind of talk about them as we move into the above. But we're also just inviting everything from the south to hold us. These are our allies. And even if we don't know who's in the south, we invite them to show themselves to us in time as we become ready to meet them, to see them, to create relationship with them, right? And then there's always an archangel. An archangel that works with the south is Michael or Michael. And so Michael, who holds the sword. and helps us battle our own demons within ourselves with the light. That light comes in and it shines in the shadow so we can see those parts of ourselves that need to be seen, exposed, and overcome the fears, insecurities, the worries, the doubts, all of those parts of us that are holding us back. This is where we call the light in so that we can overcome ourselves, right? So this is where that light of the south comes in. Now we can move to the west. We're always going to go clockwise, moving ourselves forward. If you go counterclockwise, you're moving yourself backward. We want to go forward. So the next direction would be west. And here the west in my cosmology is the water. And if you live, sometimes they can be back and forth. This is oftentimes, depending on where you live, sometimes people will have the wind in the west and water in the east, especially if the water is directly east of you, right? And the wind blows from the west. But many times the sun rises in the east and it's the breath of a new day. So the wind is connected to the east. The setting sun is in the west over through through the waters. And the west is also connected to water, connected to our emotions, our heart, and our mind, and how our heart and our mind works together. It's connected to love, into our healing, into unconditional love, compassion, forgiveness is one of the things I talk about regularly, right? And so this is how we overcome. And this is the gates of love and moving ourselves through the emotional, mental phases that we go through as our human selves. So we're inviting these allies to come in that represent love, represent overcoming our emotion and mindsets. So who's there that can help us do that? We invite you to come and be with us, walk with us. But we want to know who we're connecting to. But here's the big picture. I'm giving you this giant, kind of like scaffolding of this, it's kind of a map. I'm giving you a map of that. This is the energies that live here. And there's innumerable allies that can come with this, right? So you just want to, possibly pick one to walk with. Now, the animal archetype, because there's many different types of archetypes, like there's the hero and the king and the queen and the mother and the father and so many different archetypes. Again, we'll get to those. But the animal archetype of the West with the cosmology that I choose is the jaguar. And again, this is going to be like Mexico, Central America, South America. And the jaguar is the huntress, right? She knows life, death, rebirth. She knows the rainbow warrior. And when I speak of the rainbow warrior is the 7 chakras plus then, of course, because I work with 9 chakras. But it's the balancing of these chakras that when we're balanced in our chakras, we can overcome anything. But it's when our traumas, our wounds, our imprints, our triggers come up, we get thrown off balance. And in that chakra that wound lives in becomes out of balance. So it's us with the mind and the heart overcoming through love, through healing, through all of the compassion and forgiveness, we overcome our fear. We overcome these parts of us that otherwise will get triggered into the insecurities of our own, incarnation, whatever it is. We're always going to have some. It's part of our human experience. So this is the rainbow warrior. This is really looking at how do I balance my chakras so that I'm not at the effect of other things, other people at other times, right? Throwing me off my game. So that's the water. And then we have our water elements to go along with that. So we can think about water. We think about the sweet water of the rivers and lakes, of the aquifers, our drinkable water, the springs, of the rain. And we have the salty water of the ocean and the sea, We have the salty water of our sweat, our tears, the water that lives within us, of the amniotic fluid that we grow babies in the womb if you're a woman and you've done that or will do that in your life, right? So the sweet and salty waters of life, of creation. So we call that in, and the animal or the allies. Think about the minerals. Think about the plant, like the minerals that are connected to the watery elements. And then there's the plants that are connected to the watery elements. And there's the animals that are connected to the watery elements. And we even have bacteria and amoebas and all sorts of things. So you're only limited to your imagination, right? And so these all have the possibility of being an ally for you. They have something that they can guide you, teach you with to help you overcome your mind, your heart, to stay balanced, to overcome your trauma, your imprint, right? And then we have what we have, and then we have our archangel, which is Gabriel or Gibriel, because archangel names, are pronounced. There's a very specific way to pronounce the archangel names, and you can get a book on how to really learn how to pronounce the angel words and names and all that kind of stuff. Because when you call them, and you call them by the way they're really asked to be pronounced, through the pronunciation of their name, they will really immediately show up. Now, we're coming to this place where we need to take another commercial, and I'm just moving through. But before we go to the north, I wanted to just say that we're going to definitely go through north, east, below, above, within. And then I'm going to bring it all together. And I know that I invited you to close your eyes as I'm speaking, just really feeling into all of this, right? And so we're going to take a quick commercial. So do what you need to do in this time, and we come back, we're going to head back further in to seeing this in more clear perspective. Okay, I'll see you back here in 2.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. Okay, so again, I invite you to sink back into that heart space of yours, and you can have your eyes closed or open, however you best receive information, because really I'm inviting you to just kind of feel it into your body. Invite it in as I speak it, right? And kind of get familiar with it so that you could also find your own way of working with this too. So we're just talking about the West and working with Gabriel, Gibriel, and calling in our angels and learning how to use angel words, because when we can use the angel articulation, It's a resonance because everything is a vibration, right? So how we speak is vibrating as a tone that they can connect to. And then they're like, oh, I'm being called. Now, of course, they can come without that through energy, without even using the tone, but that's helpful as well, right? Now, moving into the north, we're moving into the earth. So this is the earthly plane. And so here, all things earth. And so this is also the place where we connect into the laws of nature, right? This is wisdom. This is the energetics that we are connecting. And this is where our ancestors come from. So we can connect into our ancestors. I usually work with the ancestors in the north. So this is part of who, if you wanted to work with one of your ancestors for the year, you could invite one of them to be with you, to work with you for a year, because sometimes we might have ancestral wounds or karma that we want to overcome. And maybe there's a grandparent or somebody who's gone before you that you could invite to walk with you for the year and say, help me overcome this part of our lineage, right? So that's one way that you can work with the ancestors. Also, what is here is I can connect to, usually I work with the wisdom keepers. And the wisdom keepers really are those who've all come from all sorts of different wisdom traditions. And we can even connect into them. If they were alive as a human before, then we can connect with them here as well. So they could also be ascended masters. As long as they occupied a physical body, they have gone through the physical, beingness of human. And that body would, of course, has laid down and somewhere that body may have been buried, except for the Christ Jesus, whose body ended up being taken up to the heavens. But everybody else's bones became part of the earth. So they're still there, right? So you could even walk with an ascended master if you wanted. If you wanted to walk with some of these ascended masters could be the Christ Jesus. It could be Buddha. It could be Confucius even. It could be Mary Magdalene, Mary Virgin Mother. It could be Saint Germain, the healer of the violet light. It could be Yogananda. It could be, it could even be Rumi, who is one of my favorite. He's a Sufi mystic, right? So those who've come before us, who've held great wisdom and who have held, who have supported humanity in the evolution. You can invite one of them to walk with you for the year, to be your guide, to work with you. And so I talked about the difference between guide and guardian, and I forgot to mention the difference. So let me take this moment. Sorry, there's a lot of information, and I skipped that part in my notes here because my notes weren't up at the time. But a guide is an energy being who can actually work and walk with you. You can call them to you, invite them, and invite them to show you the way, to be that guide, as if you would think, like if you're walking down a path in the forest with a new moon, no light, and you had someone with a lantern or a flashlight. They're going to guide you through the darkness. They're going to guide you through information, through the awakening within you in a new way that you may not have seen it before. So they're guiding you down that path, awakening you into information. And they can come in many forms. Again, they can come, even with the archetypal animal guides. So the minerals, they all have energetics that can work with us to help bring energies to us. Protection, love, healing, so many different things, right? The mineral realm literally has an energetic resonance frequency that can work with our own frequency for our healing, for our forward movement. plants do the same thing. You can work with a plant in particular, walking with a plant for the year to really learn about it, learn it as an herb, a medicine, right? Something like that. And then we have our animal guides, and I talked about archetypes. We have when we are connecting into our animals. But within, so we can invite any one of these to walk with us, guide us, teach us their medicine, teach us what they're about, teach us their healing, their wisdom. So even with these ascended masters, Gandhi again, it could be Martin Luther King, it could be anybody that you have had a resonance for, who has stood for some sort of greatness that you want to bring into your consciousness. You want to grow it within yourself. Now, the thing too about us is that everything already lives in us. That's the beautiful thing. It's just that we're off, the light's turned off. We want to illuminate it. We want to see it more clearly. We forgot about it because we come in and we have these bodies and we have spiritual amnesia. And we're like, oh shit, I forgot about how great I am. Let me remember. Let me walk through everything to illuminate the light within me that reminds me of how amazing I am. I'm a beautiful person, right? And so these guides help do this with us. Now, again, I don't want you to take too many guides on. We want to work with a little bit at a time so that you can feel, because it does take relationship building, right? We want to build a relationship, and a relationship is like meeting a new friend for the first time. Like, oh my goodness, hey, I want to be your friend. Will you be my friend? Now, I have that personality. I do that to people regularly because I have that personality to do that. But other times, people are more shy. People have all sorts of different types of personalities. That may not be you, but you know what it's like when you're building a new friendship. Friends take time. They take energy. They take love and respect and honoring too. So what does that look like? How do we do that? And this is where we begin to look at altars and how do I bring something onto the table, And so, and there's so much about that. So I'm just going to move through because we only have so much time here, right? So in the North, again, the archetypal energy for the North is the hummingbird. The hummingbird is that who is, it's the soul's journey. So I talked about the South is the physical body. The West is the emotional, mental body. The North is the soul body. It's the journey of our soul. It's the journey of our growth, our forward movement. And it's also what brings us into what do we love? What are we drawn to? What's that soul yumminess that says, oh my God, I want that, right? The soul is leading us to that, or saying, no, I don't want that, right? So the soul leads us to the finest nectar, because the hummingbird drinks the nectar of the garden, of this lifetime, of this incarnation, of this epic journey of your life. And it's about drinking the wisdom. It's about recognizing that everything that's come into your life is providing you an opportunity to grow with it, to be non-attached, right? Back to that non-attachment, to recognize that it's there to help you, grow you, serve you, evolve you, so you can become another greater version of yourself. And so when we look at our animal allies, we look at the forest, we look at the caves, we look at the earth. We look at, even in the earth, the gophers. The gophers is the theme in California right now. Where I was up in Ojai, where I am right now, little gophers hanging out, pulling the plants down, eating them underground. So they're in the earth, the earthworms, right? The grubs. Even if you had an insect, so these are some of our, our different types of animals that we can connect with. And again, there's the mineral realm that works with the earth. There is the plant realm. Of course, there's there's water plants, there's fire plants, there's wind plants, there's earth plants. You get to connect with them on what level? Because those are the elementals. Those are the energetics of how they hold energy, right? There's lots of books that will help you understand that as well. And then we have also, the animals, and then we have the angel, Uriel, the archangel of wisdom, right? So this is the laws of the universe that are reflected in the laws of nature. That we all have, they're all working together harmoniously, or hopefully, or they're trying to, but humans keep messing that stuff up, right? So, yeah. And then we move over to the east. And when we're connecting into the east, this is the wind. This is the rising sun. Now, when I say wind, the wind blows usually, as we can see through the weather reports, from the west towards the east. But when we are first born, and when we're first born, the time that our astrology clock, our natal chart is really docked is when we take that first breath. That is what it's all about in the East, is the breath and the wind and the winds of change and evolution, and how that morning sun comes up and goes through the whole day and then goes around and then sets and starts over again. It's the evolution of our life. And so really it's about our life. The East is our life's journey. It's our incarnation. It's where we came in for. So we're looking for those energetics that are connected to spirit. This is the evolution of the physical in the south, the mind and body in the west, the soul in the north, spirit. This is our new life, our new incarnation. What are we going to bring in this new incarnation? It comes with the winged ones, the wind, those who fly, and with the wind. And so the archetypal energies here are the eagle in the northern hemisphere, and the condor in the southern hemisphere. And that's specific for the Americas. So maybe, in the steppes of Mongolia. I'm pretty sure they have eagles, but maybe they have a different type of bird of prey that's more the one. You know what I mean? I don't know. But they're the ones that fly a mile high and can see the mouse, the rabbit, whatever. Because you're looking through the layers of your life. You're looking through why you have these imprints that keep coming up and keep turning over and over and over again. So you're asking for allies. Help me see through myself. Help me understand myself so that I can actually really begin to work in a way that I can overcome and evolve myself, and help me overcome, so that when I set my intentions for the new year, you can help me walk through it. You can help me see it. And there's all sorts of the winged ones, right? Even the insects, the dragonfly, the dragon, even though it's mythical at this time in our lives, it holds all the energetics of the fire, of the water, of the earth, of the wind, of spirit. So right now I am inviting, this conversation is the changing of the guard, because we can invite them to walk with us for this year. And we get to learn from them. Now, I haven't gone through it all. And of course, we're nearing the end of our time. So I'm going to bring this into next week, because this is the time that we're really looking at creating those intentions. As we move in to Imbolc, or Candlemas, or February 1st or 2nd, or Groundhog's Day, which also is another word, because it's like halfway through winter, because spring's going to show up in the next 6 weeks or a month and a half if the groundhog sees its shadow, right? So these are parts of our allies that we can begin to create these relationships. Now, this is just looking on the plane of the 4 directions. I haven't even done the vertical cross. We're looking at the sacred cross, and right now we're just doing the horizontal plane that's all around us. These are the different directions all around us, right? So just to finish with the East, because we're at the end of our time here, is that we have all the winged ones. If you can, but we also have minerals and crystals that are connected to the air. We have plants that seed themselves through the air, or have to be ingested by the birds to poop them out or something like that, right? So we connect. This is about that consciousness, right? Moving ourselves forward. And finally, we have our archangel, which is Raphael. And Raphael is the angel of our healing. And so this is where we begin to evolve and to heal. And that completes the plane of all that is available. And again, I'm going to really kind of clarify this again next week. And we're going to start to work with the vertical plane. And I just want to say thank you because we are definitely at the end of our hour. I got like 1 minute to say goodbye to y'all. And so I just want to say thank you for giving me this time tonight. Reach out to me at all. We're at the very end here. Be with this. Invite this into your life this week. See how it shows up to you and see if there are some guides that you would like to really bring into you, for walk with you to help support you as we move ourselves forward. And just one last thing about this, the guides are those who we can connect with and call to us. Guardians, actually, they hold space for us. We're not going to interact with them in the same way. And I'm going to bring Guardian into the next week because Guardians are those who've come already and have been holding us for lifetimes. And so that'll be the beginning of how we start next week is with the Guardians. All right. Thank you all for being with me. Thank you for this time. Go out, get connected to the elements, to the directions, to all that lives there. And I hope to see you next week. Take care.
This has been Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Join Andrea each week on an extraordinary journey, exploring the consciousness of energy and how you are connected. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.